Gokupinath, Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Vrinda Devi Ganga Devi Jamuna Devi Bhakti Devi ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Mathura Dham ki, Mayapur Navadip Dham ki, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Shri Dwarka Puri Dham ki, Shri Ayodhya Puri Dham ki, Krishna Life Bhakta Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Hare Krishna. Namaham Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharane, Nirvishesha, Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatityuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Srimad Bhagavatam, what is it? Skanda 2, Adhyaya. Where are we? Oh, here also we lost the place. Yeah, here it's not. What is it? Skanda 2, Adhyaya 3, Shloka 21. We get a little Sanskrit in there. Okay, right. Bharaf param pata kirita jushtam or jushta mapyuttamanga namen mukundam shavo karo no kurute sapayadarucha hare lasat kanchana kankanova bharaf param pata kirita jushta mapyuttamangam nanamen mukundam shavo karo no kurute sapayada ruch. Oh, I see. Shavo karono kurute saparhad. Hare lasat kanchana kankanova. Saparyam. How did it? Saparyam. There's a mistake in the Devanagari, actually. Bharaf param pata kirita jushta mapyuttamangam namen mukundam shavo karono kurute saparyam hare lasat kanchana kankanova. Bharav param pata kirita jushta. Mapyuttamangam namnamen mukundam. Shavo karono kurute sapariham. Hare lasat kanchana ganganova. Bharav param pata kirita jushtam. Mapyuttamangam nanamen mukundam. Shavo karono kurute sapariham. Hare lasat kanchana kankanova. Bharav param patta kirita jushta. Mapyuttamangam nanamen mukundam. Shavo karono kurute sapariham. Hare lasat kanchana ganganova. Bharav param pata kirita jushta. Mapyuttamangam nanamen mukundam. Shavo karono kurute sapariham. Hare lasat kanchana ganganova. Padapataha. Bharaha. A great burden. Param, heavy. When a param means many things, right? Heavy is one of them. You'll find this word translated in different ways in different places. Patta, silk. Kirita, turban. It's also crown. Could be crown also. Jushtam, dressed with. Api, even. Uttama, upper. Angam, parts of the body. Na, never. Namet, bow down. Mukundam, Lord Krishna the deliverer. Shavao, dead bodies. Karao, hands. Do not, no, do not. Kurute, do. Saparyam, right. Worshipping. Hare, of the personality of Godhead. Lasat, glittering. Kanchana, made of gold. Kankanau, bangles. Va, even though. So kankana is bangles. The other day we had somebody asked bangles. Kankana. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The upper portion of the body, though crowned with a silk turban, is only a heavy burden if not bowed down before the personality of Godhead, who can award mukti, freedom. And the hands, though decorated with glittering bangles, are like those of a dead man, if not engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead, Hari. Purport. As stated hereinbefore, there are three kinds of devotees of the Lord. The first class devotee does not see at all anyone who is not in the service of the Lord. But the second class devotee makes distinction between devotees and non-devotees. The second class devotees are therefore meant for preaching work. And as referred to in the previous verse, they must loudly preach the glories of the Lord. The second class devotees accepts disciples from the section of third class devotees or non-devotees. Oh, wow. This is a great purport. Wow. Huh? There are so many purports that are being neglected. This is something that needs to be used in our present battles, ideological battles. Sometimes the first class devotee also comes down to the category of the second class devotee for preaching work. So accepts disciples. So that this is an anti-Ritvik-vadi evidence. Of course, the Ritvik-vadis, they've started giving initiations. Thus nullifying their, false idea that Prabhupada is the only guru for everybody eternally. In other words, making Prabhupada into you-know-who, Jesus Christ. Sometimes, okay, but the common man who is expected to become at least a third-class devotee is advised herein to visit the temple of the Lord and bow down before the deity. Even though he may be a very rich man or even a king with a silk turban or crown. The Lord is the Lord of everyone, including the great kings and emperors. And men who are rich in the estimation of mundane people must therefore make it a point to visit the temple of Lord Sri Krishna and regularly bow down before the deity. So in India that happens. Like the richest man in India flies in his own airplane in the morning from Bombay to Tirupati, bows down to Lord Balaji and flies back in the afternoon. He may not be giving money to us, but he's a devotee. The Lord in the temple, in the worshipable form, is never to be considered to be made of stone or wood, for the Lord in his Archa incarnation as the deity in the temple shows immense favor to the fallen souls by his auspicious presence. By the hearing process as mentioned herein before, this realization of the presence of the Lord in the temple is made possible. As such, the first process in the routine work of devotional service, hearing, is the essential point. Hearing by all classes of devotees from the authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam is essential. The common man who is puffed up with his material position and does not bow down to the Lord, bow down before the deity of the Lord in the temple, or who defies temple worship without any knowledge of the science, must know that his so-called turban or crown will only succeed in further drowning him in the water of the ocean of material existence. A drowning man with a heavy weight on his head is sure to go down more swiftly than those who have no heavy weight. A foolish, puffed-up man defies the science of God and says that God has no meaning for him. But when he is in the grip of God's law and is caught by some disease like cerebral thrombosis, where did that come from? That guy, well, there's so many diseases. I mean, we can't say no, but it's how he thought cerebral thrombosis here. Huh? That godless man sinks into the ocean of nescience by the weight of his material acquisitions. I had never heard the word nescience before I came to ISKCON. I don't know if anybody else ever heard that word. But there are many such English words that we don't know all the meanings of, right? They're not regularly used. Excuse me. Advancement of material science without God consciousness is a heavy load on the head of human society, and no one must take heed of this great warning. And so one must take heed of this great warning. Excuse me. The common man, if he has no time to worship the Lord, may at least engage his hands for a few seconds in washing or sweeping the Lord's temple. Maharaj Pratap Rudra, the greatly powerful king of Orissa, which has now been changed to Odisha, you know that, you heard that official change, was always very busy with heavy state responsibilities, yet he made it a point to sweep the temple of Lord Jagannath at Puri once a year during the festival of the Lord. The idea is that however important a man one may be, he must accept the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. This God consciousness will help a man even in his material prosperity. Maharaj Pratap Rudra's subordination before Lord Jagannath made him a powerful king. So much so that even the great Patan in his time could not enter into Orissa on account of the powerful Maharaj Prataprudra. And at last, Maharaj Prataprudra was graced by Lord Sri Chaitanya on the very grounds of his acceptance of subordination to the Lord of the universe. So even though a rich man's wife has glittering bangles made of gold on her hands, she must engage herself in rendering service to the Lord. Great purport. Wow. Now I can see you. These glasses, I'm supposed to see both, right? These are progressive bifocals without the bifocal. But somehow it's not, I gotta look a little different to see the type. So, wow, what can I say? First of all, people concocted an ideology that Prabhupada would be the initiating guru forever. And Prabhupada never dealt with that directly. You know, somebody could challenge, well, he didn't know the future. Trikalagya, someone who knows past, present, and future. You've heard this word? Trikala, 3 times. Past, present, future. But he spoke about disciplic succession. Here he doesn't even use the word succession, but the same idea is conveyed. And those who say that, well, Prabhupada can go on initiating, you know, they ignore all of the references to disciplic succession and here also. Unfortunately, they're not really motivated by philosophy. They're more motivated by politics, I guess, the struggle for power. Or there are people that concoct their own ideology. There's a lot of it in the world, right? There's so many ideologies. In India, having a new religious or spiritual ideology is like drinking a glass of water. I mean, it's so common. So how do you know what's real and what's not real? Vedic literature is the basis. Books are the basis. Everything has to be corroborated. Everything means any ideology, spiritual ideology, has to be taught in the Vedic literature. If it's not, then it's not Vedic. Now, some people are in our institution, not institution, society, that say we're not Vedic. Well, they're contradicting Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Vedic, and Vedic. And Vedic means the Vedas. And, you know, some people will say, well, we don't need to study the Vedas, Gita is enough. It may be, because the holy name is powerful enough to award liberation, and the example is Ajamil. And he didn't chant Hare Krishna. You know that, right? He said Narayana. He didn't say Hare Krishna. But Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. There are so many names, and according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the names have the power of God. So we have faith in the story in the Bhagavatam that Ajamil was able to attain liberation. That was one of the things Prabhupada wrote here today. Mukti, moksha, freedom. Freedom, liberation, salvation, they're all synonyms for the soul that's inside the body to be liberated from the repetition of birth and death. That's what liberation means. Those with a poor fund of knowledge, Prabhupada used this expression. Those with a poor fund of knowledge, they don't understand that there's a soul in the body. And the human body has requisite intelligence and ability to obtain that salvation and liberation. But that salvation is not axiomatic to just saying, I'm surrendered to God. There actually has to be surrender, like cleaning the temple. Like a great powerful king cleaned the temple, example was given. some practical service has to be rendered. And the rules of sattvic living, this is where the non-Vedic religions have a poor fund of knowledge, because they are not aware of the influences of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And so they concoct that it's okay to eat tamasic food or to drink intoxicating beverages. They're called beverages nowadays. Water is a beverage, I don't know where they get this idea of beverages is alcohol. But one who takes alcohol, he's under the influence of the lower mode of ignorance. And so because of that, he may perform many sinful activities, even though he may be a so-called member of the clergy, right? The members of the clergy, you see them drinking alcohol and smoking and indulging in all kinds of, irreligious behavior, which are in the mode of ignorance. Animal life, they say God is there, but then they don't follow the principles set out in Vedic literature, because they don't know that Vedic literature is the breathing of the Lord. The Vedas are the breathing of the Lord. Why is that? There may be a question asked. Why is that? Bad luck? Why is someone born blind and deaf? Well, we believe that there's some, prarabdha karmas from a past life. People get killed in cars and planes and trains, or just whatever. The body gets destroyed, and sometimes it's untimely. Akala mrityu, you heard that expression? An untimely death. Akal, kala is time, kala, and mrityu, death. So there's a natural course of life. Janma, what is it? Kaurmaram yauvanam jada, right? There's a youth or childhood youth. Yauvanam is youth, Kaumara is childhood, and Jara is old age. Well, in the middle there's also a period of life. But the normal course of life is to go from birth till old age. But there are many people, they never make it to old age. Prabhupada also made a comment, right? Old age is the time just before death. But somebody young may die. However, by whatever, someone may be 31 years old or 21 years old or 15 years old, and they die. It's common. It's not, it's called akal, right? Untimely in English. An untimely death, akala mrityu. Like the children are not supposed to predecease the parents. It's unnatural, but it happens. So this is the miserable material world. And, everyone is expected to go through old age. And you see people that indulge in all kinds of tamasic activities live a long life. They may indulge, they may not overindulge, but they still indulge. Like there was one in India who was a journalist who lived for 99 years. And he wrote an article, The Secret of Longevity. He wrote in an article, the secret of longevity is drastically reduce your food, which I'll remember for the rest of my life, even if I can't do it. But, it was an advice of somebody who lived very long. But that fellow also ate non-vegetarian food and took alcohol every day, but limited, It's okay. It's not okay. It's in the mode of ignorance. And the people that indulge like that, they'll have to suffer for that indulgence, the sinful reaction. So we give up those activities knowing that we're giving up papas and You know, Krishna in the Gita talks about punya, pious activity. There are verses like Prapya Punya Kritan Lokan. Punya Kritan, Krita did punya, pious activity. Prapya obtained, Lokan, planets. So there are higher planets in the universe, according to the Vedic literature, and the soul can go there. Easy journey to other planets, right? But the body may not go there. That's extraordinary, like Arjuna went in the Mahabharata. Arjuna went to the heavenly planet to meet Indra, who is his, what is it, biological father, they say these days. How was that? That's another amazing story. But it's a highly exceptional example. We cannot go to the heavenly planets in this body. The soul can go prapya punya kritan. If you did something pious, right? Urdvam gachanti sattvasta. If you are situated in goodness, you'll go up. So this is the philosophy of the Gita. Lord Krishna teaches this. Urdvam gachanti sattvasta. Those who are situated in goodness go up. We have faith in these teachings based on the Guru Parampara and Vedic literature. And 99.9% of the world doesn't have that faith. We're trying to instill the faith through book distribution. Prabhupada recommended that. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati recommended that. At the end of his life, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati instructed his disciples to print many small books. And Prabhupada's printing books, well, it's all very well known by us that he wanted to re-establish God consciousness. In the past, the God consciousness that was instilled in the citizens in India, in Bharata, was because of the kings. Prabhupada gives the example in this purport of Prataprudra. And Prataprudra was just one king. Prataprudra, because of his strength, the Malechas and Yavanas, the Muslims, who had conquered much of India, couldn't conquer Orissa. There are Muslims in Orissa, but there's very few. If you go around the states of India, wherever there was Muslim rule, for 800 years, there were a large population of Muslims. We don't discriminate against Muslims in the sense that we don't hate them. The first-class devotee that Prabhupada mentioned, and he mentions, it's already mentioned earlier, but actually it's clearly delineated in the 11th canto, right? The Nava Yogendras instructing Maharaj Nimi. It's in the 2nd chapter of the 11th canto, verse, I can't remember right offhand the names of those Yogendras who, one by one, they said, the topmost devotee sees the Lord in everyone. He doesn't make a distinction, black or white, male or female, educated or uneducated, weak or strong, short or tall. These type of distinctions are not made by a topmost devotee because he sees the soul is there. That's in Gita also, right? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Sampanne means, joined together. Vidya and Vinaya. Vidya, knowledge, right? Vinaya, what is Vinaya? You know? Humility. Who said that? Thank you. So humility and knowledge, when they're both together, when you're infused, actually sampanne is like infused. Boy, I'd have to look at the Gita to see the word Prabhupada used, but Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmine Gavi Hastini. In the Brahman, in the cow, in the elephant. Gavi in now in Sanskrit grammar, Saptami Ekvachanam. Doesn't make sense, right? You never heard these words before. Locative is one of the cases. In English, you have it in English grammar, right? There's the subject of a sentence, the object of a sentence, Then there's the instrumental case, the dative case, the ablative case, the genitive case, the locative case, and the vocative. So Gavi, Hastini, Brahmine, Gavi, Hastini, these are locative case endings. But you're not going to remember that, and it doesn't matter. In the cow, in the elephant, Pandita Samadarshinaha, one who is learned, Pandit means a learned person. Samadarshina, he sees equally. Why? Because the soul is in the body. That's what he sees. So the first class devotee, he only sees the soul. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji was a Siddha Purush, we believe. That means he was a perfected being. He wasn't from a Brahmin family. He was from a Vaishya family. He didn't wear the Yagnopavit. He was beyond the Varnashram. He was a Paramahamsa. So he was his servant. He had a servant. And he was wandering around Navadvip. And he said to the servant, go and bring some food. Bhiksha. They used to beg, right? Food. And so the servant said, but Babaji Maharaj, this is a Muslim village. He said, Muslims? Navadvip is non-different from Vrindavan. This is the holy Dham. Go and bring. So somebody gave him, he asked for alms, and somebody gave a fish preparation. And he drank the juice. So it may be questioned, how could he do that? Because he was on a higher platform, he was on the highest platform. He didn't distinguish, and drinking that wouldn't affect his consciousness. He didn't need it. Who told the story? One of Prabhupada's godbrothers told me the story. He heard it from the servant of Gaur Kishore Babaji. Vamsi Das Babaji, there's a book. Have you read it? You've seen it. So he also behaved, he didn't follow, apparently wasn't following the sadhana and rules and regulations, but he was talking directly with Krishna. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said like that. But he had crazy hair, he smoked, he did crazy, what appeared to be crazy things. These are exceptional cases of examples of devotees on the highest platform. We cannot imitate their behavior, because we are not on that platform. We are following sadhana so that we can come to that platform. So sometimes, Prabhupada writes, the devotee on that platform comes down and preaches, even though he sees that everybody is actually in their original form is a servant of Krishna. But in the material world, you have to make distinction. There are Rakshasas in Vedic literature. Why is this distinction made? Right? I mean, in the Bhagavatam, Dhruva Maharaj killed the Yakshas, isn't it? Yakshas? Yakshas are the associates of Kuvera, Dana Devata. Kuvera is the treasurer of the demigods, whatever that means. He has enormous wealth. Aren't all the demigods wealthy? But how to understand it exactly is not so easy because, well, we're not there. We don't know exactly. But the Yakshas were killed by Dhruva. Despite that, apparently killing is sinful. But apparently that killing was necessary. I think who told him to stop Indra? I can't remember the story. Huh? Brahma told him, right. Brahma told him to stop the killing. But still at the end of his life, an airplane came from Vaikuntha to take him back. He was on the topmost platform. He's glorified in the Bhagavatam. Even in Vedic literature, in the Vedas, I think Dhruva is a star, right? The North Star is called the Dhruva Loka, Dhruva Tara, whatever, I can't remember. So, Krishna and Arjuna killed so many animals, right? In the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, Khandava Prastha. Krishna can do anything. If you're on a higher platform, the rules and regulations of sadhana may not apply. But the third-class devotee trying to become a second-class devotee, sometimes, because he's really third class, so he may fall down. A second-class devotee should not fall down. But falling down is in the Bhagavatam, isn't it? What's the famous example of falling down in the Bhagavatam? Ajamil, Bharat Maharaj. I was thinking of Bharat, but yeah, Ajamil fell down. He was a Brahmin, he studied Vedas. If you read carefully, yeah, he fell down. And Bharat, well, at the end of his life, he took sannyas, not formally. He was vanaprastha. Kings didn't take sannyas. They would become vanaprastha. And he was living in the forest waiting to die. And he nursed a baby deer. And he becomes so attached to that instead of thinking of Krishna, instead of thinking of Vishnu, he thought of the deer. So that's a fall down. And because of that fall down, he had to be born as a deer. And then he was born as a Brahmin. But when he was born as a Brahmin, he remembered those past lives. So that's called Jati Smara. You remember your earlier births, which is also very rare. Not everybody remembers. In fact, practically nobody remembers. But he remembered. And so then he became situated in spiritual equanimity, right? So, second-class devotees make disciples. This is what Prabhupada has taught here. Because they have to distinguish to bring people to the platform of devotion. Why doesn't the first-class devotee see that there are Muslims or Rakshasas or whatever in the world? Because they have a higher consciousness. We don't have that. Now, we see most of the Muslims, the vast majority, are peace-loving people, even if they eat tamasic food. But there are some fanatics that believe that by killing non-Muslims, they will get punya. How is that possible? Killing innocent people, how do you get pious credit by doing that? You can't, you don't. In Vedic culture, women, old people, and children cannot be killed for any offense. In this country, there are states with the death penalty that kill women, isn't it? By electrocution or lethal injection or whatever it is. That is not Vedic culture. That is Mleccha and Yavana culture. A woman can never be punished with the death penalty. Never. That's Vedic culture. So Vedic culture is meant to gradually elevate those who are fallen into the material world. What time is it? It's 8:20. I got to end because I have a meeting at 8:30. Zoom meeting that I have to attend. Okay, I'll end. And if there's any, because we can take one or two questions. Even that we have to answer very briefly. Any question? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I was wondering this statement that says, a first-class devotee sees everyone engage in the service of the Lord. How is that possible? Because first-class devotees could go to downtown Atlanta and see bums on the street. How is that they're engaged in Krishna's service?
He sees. Well, excuse me. He sees the soul itself, and not the body covering the soul, and that the soul is an eternal servant of God. So he just doesn't consider the temporary fallen condition of the soul. That's all I can think of. That's all I can say. Any other question? I hope that's a satisfactory answer. I can't guarantee that it is. Right? How can we know everything about everything? It's difficult, but I guess this was the most logical thing that I could think of. Anything else? Yeah, Prabhu.
I have a question about your previous class, because I was cooking in your previous class.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
It's just a general question. So you're making the point of,
Oh, by the way, the dhoti, the right side goes in front. You put the left side in front. I was in Calcutta in 1974. A Bengali gentleman walked up to another godbrother and I. It's that long ago, and he pointed to the other devotee. He said, "This is wrong, old guy. This is right." No offense intended. Just notice that.
so you're making the point of how, like, you know, we changed our culture with, like, we haven't changed our language.
Yeah.
You're making, you're just in general, like, emphasizing, like, how, like, the importance of, like, understanding Sanskrit. But it's, well, I guess, like, different points could be made, but, like, 'cause at least during, like, Prabhupada's time, so much, like, he didn't emphasize it, I
Yeah.
can say. And even now, like, it's in Prabhupada's time, Nitai, for instance, got deviated by it. And also, too, sometimes modernly, you see devotees also get, like, too much into it and get deviated.
See, the thing with if you don't mind me
No, go ahead.
kind of interrupting you, but the thing with Nitai was not that he knew Sanskrit. That wasn't a disqualification. Otherwise, Prabhupada would have tossed out Pradyumna, right? I was there before Nitai with Prabhupada, and Pradyumna was the Sanskrit editor. The Nitai came later to be with Prabhupada. He was obviously a devotee somewhere. The problem with him was he thought he knew more than Prabhupada. That was the problem. Not that he learned Sanskrit. So in our, all the Goswamis wrote in Sanskrit. So it's not a disqualification. They were propagating Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta in Sanskrit, not in Bengali. So that doesn't mean, that someone is not a devotee because he doesn't know Sanskrit. I'm not saying that. Kola Vecha Sridhar. Kola means banana, Kela in Hindi. Kela in Nepali also. So in Bengali they say Kola. It's a Kela, but their pronunciation is such. So he was just an ordinary, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu blessed him. So we believe Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. So, somebody can be blessed by Krishna or an incarnation of Krishna if he doesn't know Sanskrit, But we're trying to advance Vedic culture, and it's just common sense that all the Vedic literature that we're exalting is in Sanskrit. Just like in Catholicism, they speak Latin, right? Some of the clergy, not every clergyman, but those who are really into the philosophy, they learn Latin. That's a parallel of sorts. So why not? I mean, it's not something that can't be done, because we've seen hundreds of people actually speak, despite the propaganda. Anyway, I got to go. And I could go